Why do good men never win? You were told that if you were attentive, patient, sweet, and always available, then she would love you. But reality says something very different. The men who give the most are usually the first to be discarded. And here's the uncomfortable truth. It's not their fault. It's yours for playing by the wrong rules. You grew up in a world that trained you to be a gentleman, but nobody told you the game was never fair. While you're writing long paragraphs to apologize, other men simply say, "Do whatever you want," and somehow, she can't stop thinking about them. Why? What do they know that you don't? What is this hidden language that creates desire, respect, and power at the same time? Today we're going to talk about that, not through romance, but through the mind of the most dangerous thinker in history, Machiavelli, the man who understood how to rule kingdoms and how to rule hearts. This video is not politically correct. It's not for men who want approval. It's for men who want power, emotional power, personal power, relational power. Machiavelli didn't talk about flowers. He talked about fire, and you're about to learn why respect is not asked for, it is enforced. I'm going to show you how to use Machiavellian principles of power to become a man who doesn't beg for attention, doesn't collapse when ignored, doesn't sell himself for affection, because that is the man women truly desire, even if they never admit it. We're going to talk about desire, but not soft, fairy tale desire. We're talking about desire born from risk, from control, from unshakable presence. We're going to destroy the myth of the nice guy and replace it with the profile of the man who controls the board. It's not romantic, but it's real. And today you'll discover why the man who can walk away at any moment is the only man no one wants to lose. So what's wrong with being a good man? Everything, if you don't understand power. Machiavelli said that virtue without strength is useless. A man can be compassionate, but without authority, he will be stepped on. The same applies to relationships. It doesn't matter how noble your heart is if you allow people to treat you like a doormat. The fatal mistake most men make today is confusing kindness with weakness, and women can smell it. Within seconds of meeting you, a woman is not testing your kindness. She is testing your power. She watches. Can you hold your posture? Do you have boundaries? Can you say no without shaking? And do you know what she feels when you don't have those things? Pity, and pity is the beginning of the end. Machiavelli wrote that it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. This is not permission to be cruel, it is a warning, because love without respect turns into manipulation. And in relationships, if you don't set your own standard, you will live under hers. Think about it. The man who always says yes, who is available 24/7, who avoids conflict to keep the peace. He believes that is love, but in her mind, she registers it as submission. And female desire is not born from male submission. It is born from silent emotional dominance. Let's make this practical. Imagine she texts you at 2 a.m. knowing you have work the next morning. The nice guy replies instantly. The Machiavellian man does not. Why? Because he understands that every interaction is an invisible negotiation. The first man tries to please. The second man enforces respect. Here is a brutal rule most men don't want to accept. Everything you do to avoid losing her makes you less desirable. The harder you try to impress her, the more you fade. The more you sacrifice your principles to keep her attention, the more she despises you. Machiavelli already knew this. The prince who rules from need loses the throne. The one who rules from firmness keeps it. Being loved is nice, but if you must stop being yourself to be loved, you are selling your crown for crumbs of affection. Now comes the painful part. Many women don't know why they lose interest. They just feel that something is gone. What disappeared was your perceived value, because you showed that you are willing to trade your dignity for affection. Female respect is not begged for. It is inspired, and it is inspired when you become a man who is good but not foolish, can love but will not tolerate disrespect, has a heart but also has boundaries. The man who creates desire is the man who can look someone in the eyes and say, "This doesn't work for me, I'm leaving." Not to punish her, not to hurt her, but because he respects himself too much to stay where he is not valued. That kind of man activates something deep in the female mind. The feeling that he is not available to everyone. His energy is a privilege, and if you don't appreciate him, someone else will. That is not arrogance, that is strategic self-worth. Machiavelli advised that if you cannot control how others perceive you, you lose control of power. Same rule applies here. If you don't control how she sees you, she will control the emotional dynamic, without you even realizing it. Want her to see you as a real man? Don't be overly helpful. Be fair. Don't be predictable. Be consistent, but never be desperate. Every act of kindness that betrays your integrity is one less vote of respect. And here is the irony. Only when they respect you can they start to truly love you. Desire is not born from the man who gives everything. Desire is born from the man who knows his value and does not negotiate it. Still doubt this? Look at the archetype of men who attract the most. They are not the ones sending flowers every week. They are the ones with a purpose bigger than any relationship. They make you wonder, do I really have him? Or am I the one who has to win him? A woman can be with a good man, but she fantasizes about a powerful one. And that power does not come from violence. It comes from self-rule, from choosing yourself first, from being so grounded, so centered that she cannot help but respect you, even when she disagrees with you. Machiavelli never wrote about romantic love. He wrote about governing perception. When you apply these principles, you don't just earn respect, you create desire. Because in a world full of soft men, the man who sets boundaries is the one who lights a fire no one forgets. No risk, no desire. Simple, brutal. The female mind, like every human system, moves through rewards and consequences. If something cannot be lost, it is not valued. If something is guaranteed, it becomes invisible. And that includes men who are too available. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. Power is not based on being loved, it is based on what you are willing to lose. A prince who cannot imagine losing his throne is not respected. He is ignored. The same happens with the man who cannot imagine life without her. Desire needs uncertainty. Absolute security does not excite. It sedates. When she knows you will always be there no matter what, you stop being an option. You become furniture, always present, always in the background. And what is always there creates no tension, no curiosity, no hunger. Pause for a moment. How many times have you changed your plans for her? How many times have you replied within seconds? How many times have you felt anxious when she didn't answer? That impulse of total availability, even if you call it love, she experiences it as desperation. Machiavelli wrote, "He who depends on the will of another has already lost his freedom." In relationships, this means if you need her validation, she has the power. And when a woman has all the power, desire dies. Not because she is cruel, but because biology searches for leaders, not followers. And you introduced yourself as a follower the first time you said, "Don't worry, I'll adapt to you." Risk does not mean being unstable. Risk means your presence has weight. If your attention is abused, you can withdraw it. If you are not valued, you can leave. This creates what Machiavelli called fear without hatred, a state where you harm no one, but no one wants to lose you. She knows your time is limited, so she treats it with care. Think about luxury. Expensive things are not expensive only because of quality. They are expensive because they are scarce. Same with you. If you are always available, your value drops. If you are focused on yourself, on your mission, and she has to find space in your schedule, you become a priority. Real example, 2 men ask a woman out. One says, "Whenever you can, I'll adjust." The other says, "I'm free Thursday from 7 to 9. Who does she choose? The second, because she feels his attention is not guaranteed. She feels she has to earn it. This is not about playing games. This is about your time actually having structure, your life being so full of purpose that you cannot drop it for a random message and an emoji. The Machiavellian man does not ignore as a tactic. He ignores because he has higher priorities. And that is what creates a magnetism logic cannot explain. Female desire ignites when there is something to lose. A man who is not afraid to disappear, who does not suffer when he is not called, who does not beg for attention. That man lives in her mind even when he is not present. Machiavelli also said, "Men forget the death of their father faster than the loss of their inheritance." Dark, but true. Translated to modern dating. A woman may forgive your mistakes, but she will never forget the moment she realized she no longer has you secured. That leaves a mark, a tension, a risk. And that risk keeps the spark alive. You think desire comes from flowers and sweet words. It doesn't. You want her to think about you, miss you, wonder if she's losing you. You will never achieve that by being always available. You achieve it by becoming unpredictable in the right way. A man whose #1 priority is not her, but his mission. Next time she calls and you are busy, stay busy, not out of spite, but to show your life has structure. Next time she cancels last minute, don't take it personally, go silent, return to your plans. Let the next meeting be one she has to fit into your schedule. Do you know the strongest form of silent power? Saying, "It's all good." and disappearing for a week while you keep building your world. No explanations, no drama, no complaints, only action. That is risk. That is power. That is real desire. And that is the game Machiavelli would be playing if he were alive today. In the game of power, the one who controls the narrative controls reality. Machiavelli made that clear in The Prince. Perception is more important than truth. You don't need to be perfect. You need to appear solid. You don't need to be invulnerable. You need no one to know exactly where you bleed. And if there is something that kills attraction, it is the man who over-explains. The man who gives reasons, justifications, constant apologies. The man who always wants to be understood. Because inside that need to be understood is a hidden message. I need your validation. And every time you send that message, you lose perceived value. You lose authority. And in the world of desire, you lose polarity. Most men believe that if she knows everything about you, she will love you more. But what many women admire is not your transparency, it is your depth. And depth is not the same as exposure. A woman wants to know you, yes, but not completely. She wants to discover you, explore you. She wants clues, not the full map. Machiavelli said, "Men must be judged by appearances because few see what you truly are, but many see what you seem to be." Your advantage is not being an open book. Your advantage is that every word you say feels like there are 10 more behind it. That she senses your inner world but cannot fully name it. Because when a woman believes she already knows you completely, interest dies. But when she feels she has not reached the center of your mind yet, she becomes hooked. Practical example. She asks why you didn't reply last night. The needy man says, "Sorry, I fell asleep. I had a long day, then I was going to answer, but..." The Machiavellian man says, "I was busy." Short, clear, calm, that's it. You didn't give access, you didn't give control, you weren't rude, you were firm. What happens next? Mystery activates, doubt activates, and doubt is the seed of desire. This is not about playing with her, it's about protecting your narrative, not handing over the full script, because without tension, there is no attraction. Machiavelli spoke about the power of uncertainty. The prince everyone understands is a predictable prince, and the predictable man is manipulable. You must not be manipulable. You must be the unexpected variable in her mind. Strategic silence is one of your strongest weapons. Not everything deserves a response. Not everything needs explanation. Sometimes, saying nothing is already a statement of power. Remember when you were a child and your father looked at you without saying a word, but you knew you had crossed the line? That is the type of energy that creates respect. Women, even if they never admit it, desire that contained energy, that masculinity that does not brag, does not beg, does not collapse. It observes, it waits, and when it speaks with intention. Well-used silence is not indifference, it is narrative control, and mystery is not coldness, it is depth, properly managed. Now think about your social media. Do you post everything? Every meal, every selfie, every emotion? If so, you have already exposed too much. You are a digital open book, and she feels there is nothing left to discover. Your life should feel like a fortress. Some walls are visible, others hide unknown rooms. She should wonder, what does he really spend his time on? What drives him? Why doesn't he need to tell me everything? Why doesn't he ask me much? That doubt is oxygen for desire. Some people will call this manipulation. It's not. Manipulation is pretending to be someone you're not. This is choosing which version of you to show and when. This is mastery of presence. And men with power have always cultivated this skill. Machiavelli understood it. Truth without direction becomes a weapon against you. How many men have you seen fall because they talked too much? Because they showed weakness too early? Because they revealed fears to a woman who was not ready to see them? The result? She pulls away. He doesn't understand why. Because truth has timing, and if you don't understand timing, you are not being authentic. You are being careless. This is not about hiding, it is about building an identity with layers, a story she wants to keep exploring. And that only happens if you keep some things inside. If you don't answer every question, if you learn to look, smile, and stay silent. remember this. Male attention is earned, but female desire is kept through mystery. When she doesn't know what you're thinking, she thinks about you. When she doesn't know what you feel, she feels more for you. And when she's not sure she fully has you, she tries harder not to lose you. Just like princes never reveal all their plans, you should not reveal your entire soul immediately. Not out of coldness, out of emotional intelligence. You want a deep connection? Good. First, create intrigue. You want respect? Stop explaining your decisions. You want to be desired? Stop presenting yourself as common. The average man talks too much. The valuable man is the one the world wants to understand but never fully deciphers. She doesn't need to know everything about you. She only needs to know that there is much more beneath the surface. And that is enough to make her addicted to your presence. You don't need to control her. You need to control how she perceives you. Machiavelli said it doesn't matter what you are, but what others believe you are. Because people don't act based on truth. They act based on interpretation. And in love, this is even more true. A man can be emotionally mature, successful, disciplined, but if he presents himself as needy, he will be treated like a child. Another man can be imperfect, quiet, even slightly arrogant. But if he projects emotional power, he will be treated like a king. She does not react to your essence. She reacts to your frame, your energy, the way you show up. That's why the art of relationships is not in the body. It's in the mind. You don't win when you physically get her. You win when she thinks about you when you're not there. When her emotions become attached to your presence and to your absence. Machiavelli said, "Men in general judge more with their eyes than with their hands because everyone can see, but few can touch." Meaning, what you appear to be matters more than what you do in silence. This is where many men fail. They believe that if they do everything right, they will be rewarded. But women are not evaluating effort. They are evaluating experience. A woman doesn't fall in love with your actions. She falls in love with how she feels when she's around you. And if you make her feel that you are available, surrendered, emotionally dominated, it doesn't matter how successful you are, she will see you as inferior. Now listen carefully. The first mistake of a weak man is that he presents himself as a solution. He wants to be the rescuer, the emotional support, the shoulder to cry on. It sounds noble, but it is perceived as disguised neediness. The Machiavellian man never presents himself as a solution. He presents himself as an opportunity. He does not try to fix her life. He shows that his life is already solid, and she may join it if she is worthy. That shift changes everything. Example, she asks, "What are you looking for in a relationship?" The average man says, "Someone who loves me, cares about me, values me." The strategic man says, "I'm looking for someone who adds to what I already have. My peace is non-negotiable." Feel the difference. One begs for approval, the other filters with standards. And that frame alone changes how she sees you, because a woman is not attracted to a man who looks for salvation in her. She is attracted to the man who is so complete that her validation does not change his direction. Another Machiavellian principle. If you cannot be loved, be feared. But if you can be both, you win. In relationships, this means be fair, be emotionally available, but never sacrifice your structure to please. Be warm, but unpredictable. Be affectionate, but firm. She must feel that. You desire her, but you do not need her. And that makes her invest more, because what can be lost is protected. What is difficult to obtain is valued, and what does not bend for emotions is respected. The second fatal mistake of the average man, he explains his value. He wants her to understand how good he is. He talks about his past, his pain, his struggles, his achievements. He believes more information equals more connection. But value is not explained. Value is demonstrated. A valuable man never says, "I'm valuable." He makes her feel it through how he speaks, how he moves, how he walks, how he sets boundaries. Example, she flirts with another man in front of you. The insecure man causes a scene. The passive man stays silent, smiles, and does nothing. The Machiavellian man smiles and says, "Do whatever you want. Just remember, I can choose too." And he leaves. Result? She doesn't know if it was disrespect, maturity, or coldness. But she thinks about him all night because you didn't give her drama. You gave her a lesson. And that is narrative control. You don't need to manipulate. You only need to create an expectation and then dominate it. Another example. She expects you to behave like every other man, to text her every morning, to reply fast, to chase when she pulls away, but you do the opposite. You don't text, you don't complain, you don't explain. And in her mind, a question appears. Why doesn't he do what everyone else does? That question is your victory. Because the female mind obsesses over what it cannot predict. Machiavelli said, "He who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command." And you command not with shouting, you command with presence, not with physical control, with emotional control. Next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, to apologize without reason, to over-clarify, stop, breathe. Remember, perception is everything. Respect is earned in the first impression, but it is lost with a single unnecessary validation. You are the prize. You are the filter. And if she forgets that, it's not her fault. It's because you failed to project it. Master expectations. Project scarcity. Show firmness without explanations. Make her feel that being with you is not a right. It is a privilege. Real power is not staying. Real power is being able to leave without looking back. Many men think love is proven by insisting, by arguing, by insisting again. But the real proof of power is knowing when to withdraw, without complaining, without explaining, without asking to be chosen. Machiavelli knew this. The best way to preserve power is to be feared to lose it. This also applies to love. The man who cannot let go has already lost. The man who begs, who stays where there is no reciprocity, he is not showing love. He is showing lack, and that lack is why he is no longer desired. You are not here to convince anyone to stay. You are here so they realize losing you was a mistake. Detachment is not coldness. It is a higher form of self-respect. It is looking at someone you once loved and still saying, "This no longer serves me," and walking away, not with hate, with elegance. Strategic withdrawal is an art, and as Machiavelli said, wise men do not act when emotion commands. They act when calculation indicates. Leaving at the right moment creates something no bouquet of flowers ever could. Unforgettable dignity. The kind of act that leaves a mark, that is remembered years later. Because there was no drama, no accusations, no shouting, only silence. And silence is terrifying to the person who thought they owned you. Clear example. You're with a woman who changes. She stops respecting your time. She replies with indifference. The weak man confronts her with complaints. The average man waits and hopes she changes. The Machiavellian man disappears without saying a single word and lets the void speak for him. Why is this so powerful? Because when you disappear quietly, the other person has no emotional defense, no counterattack, only questions. What happened? Did I lose him forever? How can someone leave without needing closure? And inside that mystery, you leave your legacy. Machiavelli said the prince must be feared in such a way that he does not create hatred, but he does create respect. In relationships, this means your withdrawal must be so clean, so firm, so final, that she cannot hate you, but she also cannot forget you. True attraction is not in how much you tolerate, it is in what you are willing to walk away from. A man who can release a woman with the same firmness he once embraced her is a man who will never be forgotten. And here comes the hardest truth. The man who loves the most is not the one who insists the most. It is the one who respects himself the most. Because if you have to beg, chase, or lower yourself for someone to stay, you no longer have a relationship. You have a dependency. And what you want is not forced company. You want a woman who knows she can lose you if she breaks the code. A woman who understands your love is not a prison, but it is not a favor either. It is a pact. And if she breaks it, you leave, not because you feel nothing, but because you feel so deeply that you will not accept less than you deserve. Detachment is hard because it forces you to face your demons, your loneliness, your fear of not being enough. But Machiavelli said, "He who does not prepare his soul for loss is condemned to become a slave of fate." And if you are not prepared to lose her, She has all the power. Prepare yourself to walk away, not with coldness, with clarity. Always keep a dignified exit in your pocket. Don't wait until you are emotionally destroyed to say enough. Don't wait until your self-esteem collapses to stop begging. The moment you notice you are becoming a weaker version of yourself just to keep a relationship, you already lost. Yes, it hurts, but that pain is cheaper than the price of staying where you are not valued, because one day she will remember. You didn't cry, you didn't beg, you didn't make a scene, you simply left, and that silent act of power will be tattooed in her memory. You don't need to be perfect, you only need to be a man who can walk away when something stops being reciprocal, because in the end, the only thing that truly ignites respect is the ability to leave without warning. If you made it this far, you are no longer the same man who started this video. Now you understand why being good is not enough, why being available, pleasing, and predictable does not create desire. It creates boredom. And why Machiavelli, centuries ago, understood better than anyone how respect is built, even in love. Respect is not requested, it is imposed. Desire is not begged for, it is provoked. And love should never cost you your dignity. Today you learned that power is not about manipulating others. It is about ruling yourself. Becoming the man who can love deeply, but is always willing to leave if a line is crossed. That man, even if no one says it out loud, is the man everyone wants, but few deserve. And if you want to continue transforming into him, subscribe to the channel right now. Because this was not a video, this was a silent war manual. And what's coming next is even more brutal. Click, activate the bell, and prepare yourself to become part of the 1% who no longer play by the rules of romance, but by the laws of power. Yeah,